I knew from the first time I played football, for me, winning was all that mattered. I'd rather cheat and win than not win. I had to get hold of a psychologist because what I was doing to myself was, I was just driving myself mad.
I could see throughout your career that much of your success has been a result of a winning mentality and character in some of the toughest moments. And that's not the case with all the footballers that I've spoken to. That's just the case with some of them. And even when I sat with Peter Crouch, he referenced you as being so set on winning and so obsessed with winning that he didn't think you were ever enjoying it. And so I'm trying to figure out, and you smile when I say that because you know it's true. I've heard you say that subsequently. But where does that come from? Where does that character and that obsession with victory at all costs, to the point that you cause suffering in yourself, where does that come from?
I think my dad, and whether you're born with something like that, maybe you speak to a lot of probably more people who could give you that answer than I do, and maybe have a better insight into it to me in some ways. And that I'm not quite sure, but I knew from the first time I played football, for me, winning was all that mattered. And if you say to me, what do I miss most about being a professional footballer? It's winning. It's not the taking part, it's not the training. A lot of people always say this. I hear footballers say this all the time. I miss the dressing room. I don't miss the dressing room. I miss the dressing room after the game when we win. That you've done something together. And I listened to Crouchy's podcast because I seen it pop up somewhere. I think it was Mail Online or something. Peter Crouch said Steven Gerrard and Jamie Carragher writ off players after 15. I thought I better listen to this one. But what Peter Crouch said is right. And he's probably looking at me a little bit dumbfounded. I can't understand that. But I can't understand him. For me, Bill Shankly said football is a matter of life and death. And I don't think he meant that. I think that was obviously tongue-in-cheek at the time. And no football club knows that statement is not true more than Liverpool Football Club. But it's very close to being true. That's the way I see it. Football for me is a way of life. And winning is all that matters. And for me, when I played, I'd rather cheat and win than not win. And I don't think I'll ever be any different. And that's why I think football has taken me to places in my life that almost brings a tear to my eye. But it's always taken me to places where I'm like, I don't feel like I'm ever going to get over it. A result or something hasn't gone well.
You mentioned that post-match feeling is the best and potentially the feeling you miss. But I've also heard you describe it as relief. And that's an interesting thing, because people would think the post-match victory feeling would be euphoria and elation, but for you to describe it as relief is a curious word.
Because I knew how bad I'd feel if we didn't win or it hadn't gone well. It was almost relief that I'm not going to feel like that for the next 2 or 3 days, because I think I punished myself a little bit when I didn't perform well or we didn't win, and I regret that, but I don't know if I could have done anything different. It was me. I spoke to at one stage. I spoke to. I had to. I wasn't asked to. I had to get hold of a psychologist, sports psychologist who I knew, because what I was doing to myself was, I was just driving myself mad, really, with the standards I was expecting of myself. And this, I must say, was not when I was not playing well and short of confidence. This was when I was at my absolute peak and best. That's when I needed more help. Because I got to a stage where I felt I couldn't make a mistake. If I didn't play well, I thought we were going to lose. Yeah, because I wasn't daft. I was playing at my best. I was a huge part of the team. And there was sort of me at the back and Stevie Gerrard at the front, if you like. And there was lots of other great players around there, of course. But I knew I was a huge influence in the Rafa Benitez era. And I felt I'd go into big games thinking, if I don't play well today, we're not going to win. And if I made a mistake, and I always remember the mistake I made, it was away at Atletico Madrid. Champions League group game, we're winning 1-0, we're under pressure constantly, and I'm playing really well. I'm in control. That was me in my element, away from home in Europe for Liverpool, trying to get that clean sheet, organised and talking to everyone. And a long ball, and I just misjudged it, and they scored. And in the airport on the way home, I was just like, this can't go on. This has got to stop. What I'm actually doing to myself. I've played great. I've made a little mistake. They've capitalised on it. But you can't put yourself through that.
What was the symptoms that you were confronting in that moment? What couldn't carry on? So you'd made that mistake, you're in the airport, you're on the plane, whatever. What's happening?
I couldn't get it out of my mind. I'd go like two nights without sleeping. I mean, when I say not sleeping, I might get a couple of hours. I'll be like constantly on my mind. I'd wake up, it was the first thing I think about. And I was just like, what am I doing to myself? But how do you stop it? But the fascinating thing was, when I spoke to the sports psychologist, a guy called Bill Beswick, and I knew him from the England squad. After speaking to him, and then it got to the stage where I spoke to him probably 2 or 3 times a season, almost like I'd reflect and, what's gone on. I couldn't change. We actually got to the bottom of, this is what's making you who you are. This is the drive to sort of, if you did probably dismiss mistakes and we're not too bothered, I'll be fine next week. That wouldn't make you who you are. And I could still never shake it off. I couldn't, but I almost, by speaking to him, it made me understand and accept that's what it was. So I still went through turmoil if I didn't play well, if I made a mistake. I always wonder if that was like a byproduct of being a local player. I always think, what would I have been like if I'd have played for Aston Villa or Tottenham? Or, I didn't know that many people. It felt like you were playing for the club or the supporters or your family and friends, really.
Did you ever feel anxiety in those moments, the feeling of anxiety? So when something is plaguing you so much that you almost feel that kind of sense of nervous energy that keeps you up at night and you feel it in your stomach?
No. It was never anxiety. I would say anger. And I want to put this right. It's like, I didn't even want to sleep. I want to get to training the next day.
Did that come out in your home life? Because it's hard not to take that home with you.
Yeah, I think it will have done. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I remember something came up a year or two ago on Twitter about a group of players or a certain player, or may have been a manager, went out and had a meal or a few drinks after they'd lost. And there was this big debate on Twitter. Well, why shouldn't they, some fan, what fans are like, they shouldn't go out. And there was this few big debate, and I think Gary Lineker mentioned something that I've never changed my plans on the back of results. Okay, that sounds nice. I thought that was unbelievable. I would change plans every single week if that game didn't go well. So that's where it would have affected my home life. So in terms of organising a night out, going for a meal with friends, whatever it may be, I couldn't have shown my face if we'd have lost and I played poorly. Not a chance. And I couldn't believe that some players could just carry on with their life. I'd be a bit like, oh no, because the feeling in your stomach is that bad. You don't even want to be. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be with people. You don't want to speak. That's how much it got me. And I go back to that. Would it have been different at another club? I would never have wanted to play for another club. But that is the one thing I do think about. Would it have results and performances affected me differently?
You come home after losing a game or something. You got your family there, your kids run up. Hey!
I mean, to be fair, my kids were quite young when I was still playing. But there was one game that stands out when I couldn't get out of something. I was opening a restaurant. I opened a restaurant about 10 or 15 years ago called Cafe Sports England in Liverpool. And the 2 times we opened, those 2 games I didn't play well. And in my head before the game, I'm thinking, I've got to play well in this game because people will think if I don't play well, I've got my mind somewhere else. And I was probably too focused on the game in some ways. And then I had to go and almost open the restaurant and there was people there. And I remember the second one, it was like, no. I was there 20 minutes. I was like, I've got to go.
If I spoke to Nicola, which I might have done, but I won't tell you before I asked the question, and I said, when Jamie loses a game, is he different? And what's he like? What would she have said to me?
100%, yeah. 100%.
What would she have said, do you reckon?
He's not there when I'm talking to him. I think she'd probably say that. Maybe now at different times, but I would be in a trance. I'd just be sort of daydreaming, people would be speaking to me. And it's probably best just to leave me alone and not try and get my mind off it, because I couldn't. Even if I did get my mind off it, I know I'd go back to it.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favour. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.